finally lose a series, and they're first at home, and it's to the Chicago White Sox, and they lose a doubleheader. So there was a rain out Friday, and it was rescheduled for a doubleheader Sunday, and they lost both games on the Sunday. So bit of a tough way to end, that streak. And the Yankees are still 29-12, best record in baseball, and they are 5 games ahead of the Rays. But definitely some things that are, somewhat concerning. And health has become a story, not a huge story, but it's part of it. And the offense, kind of running a bit hot and cold, and not getting necessarily enough production outside of the top guys, where the depth issues, within the lineup are not great. But at the same time, the offense did get it done the first game of the series, but the doubleheader the Yanks scored 1 run, combined in those 2 games. So, and the starting pitching was brilliant. The starting pitching, really, at this point, that's the main strength. The bullpen is seeing some cracks, whether it be injury. Chad Green has been, is out for the season, Tommy John surgery, and that's not great. I mean, Chad Green, I think now that he's gone, I think you'll realize the value of him more. And, there was a time for me when I felt like overrated is the wrong word, but I think he didn't necessarily come through in the big spots as much as I'd like, considering how good of a pitcher he is and how good of his numbers are. He had a penchant for giving some pretty big home runs, but still, you're going to miss, his arm in the pen. On a lesser note, Luis Gil is also, I think, slated for Tommy John surgery, and so that hurts the overall pitching depth. But Aroldis Chapman, who has been awful, terrible. Apparently, there's an Achilles issue. How much that has to do with the struggles, I don't know, but that could be maybe an IL situation. So, and just some overall ineffectiveness in the pen. But, there was a lot to digest in this series. The Tim Anderson, Josh Donaldson situation. And that wasn't, that wasn't great. And, Josh Donaldson, do I believe that it was racially charged? I don't, but, it wasn't a smart thing to do. There's no need to say, call him, Jackie, for Jackie Robinson. And, look, Tim Anderson, he has his, issues as well. But in this case, these are 2 very competitive, sort of hot-headed players who oppositions don't like. I don't think the opposing team loves Tim Anderson. I don't think the opposing team loves Josh Donaldson. I mean, I certainly can say, as far as Josh Donaldson's concerned, that I was not a big fan of Josh Donaldson, especially when he was on the Toronto Blue Jays. So that's a situation where, we'll see what transpires. I mean, we're done with the White Sox, so I think that's probably about it. But, that got a little ugly on Saturday. But, for the Yanks, it's really the doubleheader really affected, I think, partially what happened. But there's really no excuse to lose both. If you had gotten the split, that would have been perfectly fine. But again, it's hard to complain a whole lot because the Yankees have, had a really, really good season, of course. So game one. Game one is between Dallas Keuchel, who the Yankees did get to. They didn't in Chicago for the reason they did at Yankees Stadium, versus Nestor Cortez. And Cortez, it wasn't one of his best outings, but still pretty damn good. And he made one mistake to Jose Abreu. And other than that, he was really good. I mean, you go 5 innings and you give up no walks, 7 strikeouts. That's pretty good stuff. So, and what's crazy is, Cortez's ERA is now 1.8. Which shows how good it was. We gave 3 earned runs in 5 innings, and it's still 1.8. Not that 5 innings and 3 runs is bad, but just crazy. So in this game, on the bench would be Joey Gallo. But, to get straight to it, Joey Gallo was placed on the COVID list. He did not test positive for COVID, but he has symptoms. So Higashioka, who did play in this game, Higashioka and Gallo have been placed in the COVID IL. So on the roster now is Rob Brantley, who we saw last season, and then as well Estevan Florial. And also Ron Marinaccio took Chad Green's spot. But yeah, so the Yanks jump out to a big second inning. And this was a game where Giancarlo Stanton was very prominent. He was 3 for 4. Even weirdly, he had no runs or RBIs, but trust me, he was very much a part of the action. But in the second inning, it would be a RBI single for Isaiah Kiner-Falefa. So Kiner-Falefa has been coming around a bit. The doubleheader wasn't great for him, but he has been coming around a bit and gets an RBI single there to give the Yanks 1-0 lead. Eventually, it's bases loaded, 2 out, and this is the big blow of the game. It's a grand slam for DJ LeMahieu, his 3rd home run of the season, and it gives the Yanks a 5-0 lead in the second. And this was a LeMahieu home run that was definitely a Yankee Stadium home run, no question. And I think with DJ, there's been struggles there. This was a good moment in what was, I think, a series that was not very good for him. We're kind of seeing what we saw last year. He's around 250. The OPS isn't really spectacular, but, we'll see. But again, big grand slam for LeMahieu, and it makes it 5-0. And the White Sox do, get that 3-run homer by Abreu in the next inning. It's a 2-out, 3-run homer for Jose Abreu to make it 5-3. But as you see what the Yankees do a lot of the time is if you score, they're going to score the next inning, and that's what they do. It is a walk to Rizzo, a single by Stanton, so first and third, then Josh Donaldson gets an RBI ground out, makes it 6-3. Cortez gets through 5. He gets through 5. The Yanks are up 6-3. And that's when at the bottom of the 5th, the Donaldson stuff happens where Grandal talks to Donaldson. Bench is clear. No punches are thrown, but things got contentious. And we know, sort of what happened with that. So we head to the 6th, and Michael King struggled. Michael King, who was amazing the outing before against Baltimore, he's been a little bit – naturally, he hasn't been as good lately, but definitely give him the benefit of the doubt. But King – gives up a couple of 1-out doubles. So it's an RBI double for Luis Garcia. And then it's another double for Josh Harrison with 2 outs. And so it's a 6-5 Yankee lead. But the Yankees doing what they do, they respond and score the next inning. It's a Higashioka walk. It's with 1 out, a LeMahieu walk, an Aaron Judge infield single, and then Anthony Rizzo gets a sac fly. So Rizzo, who honestly hasn't been amazing lately, gets a pretty big sac fly there to make it 7-5. And then in the 7th inning, it would be Jonathan Loaisiga, who gets into some trouble, but then is able to strike out the side. So it was actually 1st and 2nd with no out, and he strikes out Grandal, Pollock, and Garcia. So a good moment for Loaisiga in this game. But by the end of the series, Loaisiga was not great. We head to the 8th, where Miguel Castro comes on and is able to get a strikeout. There's a single and a ground out. And for Garcia, he also struggles in that last game of the series. So good moments for Loaisiga and Castro early, but not at the end. And then Clay Holmes, who is just, like I keep on saying, honestly, you can make the argument that he has been the best reliever in baseball since the Yankees acquired him, and certainly this season. He's been amazing. Andrew Vaughn and Holmes goes to the 4-out save. Vaughn grounds out, and then in the 9th, it's a 1-2-3, including a couple of strikeouts. Clay Holmes is absolutely better than Aroldis Chapman. Clay Holmes deserves, to be in the biggest of spots, whatever that might be. Whether even if it's the 7th inning, 8th, whatever it is, 8th inning. Clay Holmes is the top guy in the bullpen. He is lights out. And so that's a story in this game as well. Clay Holmes with the 4-out save, drops his ERA to .42, just insane. And the Yanks, with the 7-5 win. Big grand slam for DJ LeMahieu, and, Stanton with 3 hits. That's really where this game was at. But then we head to Sunday, and that's where the Yanks really scuffle offensively against Johnny Cueto and Michael Kopech. I was at the Ranger game for the first game of the Yankee doubleheader. But, so obviously, context-wise, it changes sort of my opinions. But I followed it, and I saw the highlights and everything. So Jameson Taillon was great. 7 innings, 5 hits, 1 run, 1 walk, 7 strikeouts. Taillon was brilliant. For the Yanks, Gleyber Torres would be on the bench. For this one, Marlon Gonzalez would be in there for both games. And keep in mind, that's partially because Joey Gallo is on the COVID list. So we might see a little bit more of Marlon Gonzalez than we would have previously. But Aaron Judge was really the Yankee story of this one, 1,000%. Judge, went 3 for 4 and had a big solo homer to tie it up in the 8th. He's been amazing, Judge. Just really for me, if not for Mike Trout, Judge is, looking like a front runner for MVP, and it's early. We're 2 months, we're less than 2 months into the season, but certainly Judge is putting up MVP caliber numbers. He's been amazing. And so the Yanks, it's a scoreless game. In the 4th, the White Sox break through with a 1-out RBI single by Yasmani Grandal. Taillon's able to get out of the rest of that inning and keep it at 1-0. Let's jump ahead to the bottom of the 7th. Bottom of the 7th, Aaron Hicks gets a leadoff single, and then Connor left for singles. So Hicks, who has been better lately, the last 2 games, again, just really from a singles perspective. Again, the pop isn't there. To me, there's still major concerns, but let's just fast forward. So Cueto, who pitched really well, comes out, and then Marlon Gonzalez strikes out. So it's first and second 1 out with Trevino up and LeMahieu on deck. And what does Aaron Hicks do? He gets picked off at second base. He can't do anything right. Like, even when he gets hits, Hicks finds a way to fuck up. And it's inexcusable. You cannot get picked off in that situation. And he does. So Aaron Hicks, kind of ends the inning right there. And so the Yankees still trail 1-0. Lucas Licky, who struggled lately, is able to pitch a scoreless 8th. And then in the bottom of the 8th, off of Kendall Graveman, it's a home run for Aaron Judge's 15th homer of the year. And it ties it up at 1. Then Anthony Rizzo gets a bit of a lucky double. And then Stanton's intentionally walks, setting up the stage for Josh Donaldson, a very controversial figure. And, Donaldson hits a deep fly ball to the warning track, but it's tracked down by Luis Robert. And then Aaron Hicks, with a chance to go with a big hit, just sky-high pop-up, because Aaron Hicks, he just doesn't get it done. That's it. Just doesn't get it done, Aaron Hicks. And there's really nothing that we can do about that, but it is what it is. Then in the 9th, speaking of players that have struggled, it's Aroldis Chapman. And on a second pitch, it's an A.J. Pollock home run to give the White Sox a 2-1 lead. With 1 out, he walks Andrew Vaughn. Then there's a wild pitch. Then there's a pass ball. So Vaughn's on third. And then it's a double for Adam Engel. White Sox take a 3-1 lead. Chapman's out of the game at this point. And so now we will see if he hits the injured list. I wouldn't be surprised if he does. I wouldn't be surprised either way, but it feels like him hitting the IL seems very, very possible. And then in the 9th, Liam Hendricks, who the Yankees always hit, is able to pitch a 1-2-3 inning. And so the Yankees lose it 3-1 in a game that they could have won. And as it turned out, after the doubleheader was over, looking back on it, that was the more winnable game. And quite frankly, it makes sense. Johnny, it should have been that way. But both games were very similar, where the starting pitching was fantastic on both sides. So we moved to game 2 of the doubleheader, game 3 of the series. And Luis Savarino was awesome. Savarino got out of a lot of jams, but was really good. He went 7 innings, no runs, 8 hits, no walks, 5 strikeouts. So it wasn't pretty, but again, no walks, 5 strikeouts. That's a great ratio. And Severino really, I felt like most of his strikeouts were in the biggest of moments where he needed to sort of put someone away. Like, it was a clutch outing by Luis Severino, and a very impressive one. I really liked what I saw. I wasn't able to watch Taillon as much, but it looked like Taillon was really good. But Severino, like, just really nasty stuff. And then this one, Josh Donaldson would be on the bench for this game. And so the Yanks, really couldn't touch Michael Kopech. It would actually be Rob Brantley who got the first hit for the Yanks in the 6th inning, a double to break up the perfect game. And the Yankees would get a little bit of a chance in the bottom of the 7th off of Kopech. With 2 outs, Stanton and Torres walked, but then Florial struck out. So big stop for Florial. Not a bad at-bat, but he strikes out. And then we head to the 8th. And this is where the White Sox get it done. And it's Jonathan Loaisiga that comes on. And I will say that there was a bit of bad luck for Loaisiga as Jose Abreu singles to start the inning on an infield single where Gleyber Torres makes a really nice play. And no one talked about it, but Rizzo with a pretty weak scoop attempt. Again, no one brought, the ESPN crew didn't say much, but I think that's a play where Rizzo should have honestly made. It was a really nice play by Gleyber Torres, and Rizzo can't come up with it. Then with 1 out, Gavin Sheets with a very lucky single down the third baseline, kind of a squib chopper that barely, stays fair. And so it's first and third. So Loaisiga, it's hard to blame him for what he had done to that point. Then Luis Garcia lines out to Connor Falefa, so he almost gets out of it, but then Andrew Vaughn gets an RBI single, and then Reese McGuire gets an RBI single to make it 2-0. So at that point, it gets frustrating because now Loaisiga, even though maybe his fielding failed him and there was some bad luck, Loaisiga is up to a 7.02 ERA. And look, relievers ERA is very misleading, but still, 7.02, that's something. And part of the reason why it jumped up that high is because Miguel Castro comes in and gives up a 3-run home run to Tim Anderson. And it's fitting. With Tim Anderson was a lot of the storylines and everything that happened with Donaldson, and Anderson gets a 3-run homer, kind of fitting, makes it 5-0, and that would be it. But White Sox win 5-0. The Yankees, they had a 9 consecutive series winning streak that has come to an end. And now they play the Orioles again. It'll be a 3-game set home against the Orioles before a big 4-game series at Tampa. And at this point, I'm kind of looking for the sweep against Baltimore. Even though Baltimore, they've been playing okay. They beat the Rays a couple of times this weekend. They just called up their top prospect, Adley Rutschman. So this won't be that easy, but it'll be Jordan Lyles versus Garrett Cole. You got to like that matchup. And then it'll be Bruce Zimmer versus Jordan Montgomery. So these are rematches of Wednesday and Thursday at Camden Yards. And then the last game, presumably, will be Tyler Wells against maybe Clark Schmidt, maybe or we'll see. Maybe or maybe Davey Garcia. I think maybe Clark Schmidt, or maybe they call up a Davey Garcia because of that rain on Friday. The Yankees have to go with a bit of a spot starter, so that could be problematic. So I guess my prediction on this series, I think the Yankees win it. I think that they might win the first 2, but then that third one, that one could be the challenge again. But either way, the Yankees, it's a big week, and you don't want to overlook the Orioles. You definitely don't, and they should. They've already lost a series to them, but then it's a big 4-game set at Tampa. Their first series with the Rays, and that's their closest competition right now. So that'll be interesting to see. But again, the Yankees lose the doubleheader, thus losing the series. And they dropped to 29-12, not the end of the world, and they will now take on, again, the Baltimore Orioles.